we intended the walled city to be only seen in Act 3, and we were going to mythologize it and mythologize it until we got to Act 3, and then Mike thought it was wise that we have it right there, just on the edge of Hong Kong, right? And I thought that was a great ad. And then it's like, well, if it's sitting right there, let's start the game right there too.
Yeah, and some of the thinking that we sort of restructured in doing that was, the very earliest drafts, the Yama Kings were going to have already been in the walled city.
Right.
For the, and sort of the walled city was going to be this place that, again, we mythologize and build up, and it's where these horrible spirit beings live, and so there was this thought of, well, we can't have you go there if this is where the big bad things live, because how are we going to put you through that in the very beginning of the game and get you back out of it again? When we sort of reorganized our thinking to the Yama Kings coming to the walled city, that made it more plausible to send you there as an early run.
Yeah, and it's got the foreboding and stuff like that.
Yeah, I gotta say, the walled city tile set is like one of my favorite ones in the entire game.
Yeah.
Because it looks like you're floating way up above.
Thank you very much, Tyler.
You're floating way up above stuff, and you could fall down in any of the cracks and get inside it. Yeah, it's like super gross, creepy.
Yeah, I think definitely one of the biggest challenges of that, doing the art for that area, was to make it feel like you really were on the roofs, but it was still over top of you, and it was just a giant tower of Jenga and filth that was just gonna fall on your face.
Jenga and filth. It's going to be your autobiography. Jenga and filth.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah. I can fill in some lines for that. But yeah, I deeply, deeply enjoyed doing that tile set. A lot of people might not know this, but the first game idea I ever pitched was for Calvin Walled City, and so that I actually got to make it, and so it was pretty exciting.
That's a dream come true. And then from a gameplay point of view, Trevor built that one, and it didn't contain that little quest, right, where you go around with the feng shui.
Yeah, the bad she, the introduction to that concept.
Yeah. And so that was a really interesting process also.
It was a late ad, wasn't it?
It was a very late ad, and it was, Klemecki pointed out, the way it started was, he was just like, you know what, it feels a little empty of stuff to do. And I had been like ruminating on that with Trevor forever. It's like, we gotta do something in here. This isn't right. It was a matter of, there's gameplay, right, where you want something to do, but also how do we set the tone for the whole thing?
The idea of feng shui and all of that being a real world force comes directly from the pen and paper role playing game. Sort of what I tried to add into the mix, it was the idea of looking at why things were so bad in this particular location, and there maybe being more to it than it just being a natural phenomenon.
talking about the walled city, I think we should also talk about the guy who's running it, Strangler Bao.
Well, that was the mission.
Big badass. Yeah, we got to get to him, and
He's got some sweet tattoos and a cybernetic jaw. I am afraid of this man.
he also has a teddy bear.
He also does have a teddy bear on his bed.
The reason he has a teddy bear because I put a teddy bear in there back when it was the Magpie's room, when it was the Wamboa, and that room didn't change. Like we never took the teddy bear back out of it.
What you meant was in Strangler Bao's backstory. When he was a kid, he had.
Welcome to game development, kids.
I don't know. I added some red lights in there.
Well, you created Val.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the funny thing is, I mean, we talked about how initially this run was on the Wampoa. The basic structure of what you're supposed to be doing remained intact despite the location change. The core concept was you would take either Gobbet or Isabel. There would be magical or tech-based approaches based on who you took, and you were going to confront someone who had been getting too big for his or her britches, who kindly wanted a message delivered to. So we basically just took that concept and transposed it into the walled city and made it a Yellow Lotus lieutenant who'd gone rogue, and that is Bao, who, as people have pointed out, is a badass and has tattoos, and I think is wearing cargo shorts.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And flip-flops, I believe.
Yeah.
This is how you know that this man is not afraid of anything.
Exactly.
Well, I think the important thing to note about that is that he is afraid of one thing, which is kindly. Like,
Well,
he gets
yeah.
cowed by her in the end. Like, that he is this really imposing Lotus figure. He's
Right.
a very powerful guy in the walled city, but at the end of the day, it takes one phone call from kindly, and he comes running.
Yes. Right.
So I think that's important to kind of sell kindly as that all-knowing, string-pulling, swear engine figure.
Part of the kindly intro.
Yeah, it's part of the whole
Absolutely.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, it restaging this, making it focused on the Yellow Lotus and on the walled city, both helped to establish the walled city's presence in the story and to reinforce the character of Kindly Chang. So it was a really good change.
some fun stuff about the boat, and the safe boat, as we called it. That's the dead-facing term for that boat. Is the safe boat.
Yes.
It wasn't a safe house. It was a safe boat.
Same boat.
And what's fun is I asked John Everest, our composer, to make a special song for that. And if you know, if you played Shadowrun Super Nintendo, there was this Otherworldly Canines track that really stood out, and for some people, pretty iconic of Shadowrun and video games in Shadowrun. And then that came along with us through A Bit in Returns, and then the only place it played in Dragonfall was like this rearranged version of it in your safe house. So then John did another arrangement using that Otherworldly Canines theme still in the safe boat, and it really it really sort of ties all the experience together, and you're just like, it's a really strong evocative track, and it was fun to sort of put that in there and sort of connect all that stuff together a little bit with the music.
I love the boat itself.
Now I will forever associate that music with life on the Big Texas.
That's right.
Great option.
Yes.
You gotta have a Big Texas.
Yeah, but there's a limit, isn't there, to how many times you can change the name before Gobbet gets mad at you?
Yeah, you can change the name as often as you want in Gobbet's sort of second trust level, but if you leave town on a Shadowrun and then come back and ask to change it again, she tells you no, she's already painted the name on the side of the boat, and she's not going to cut another stencil.
So one other thing I'd like to add about the safe boat is that in this place, it felt like every crew member had their spot.
Yeah.
And it was particularly effective in revealing Raptor for the first time. And I really appreciated that. We should talk about our crew just a little bit.
Yeah, especially Raptor.
Yeah, how did you come up with Raptor in the first place and all that kind of stuff?
Raptor was based on a pen and paper character that I played in the one and only game that Mike Mulvihill ran for us.
Oh my god, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. that is what I am.
Looking around the room.
I thought you were going to start with a story about the creepy Russian roommate you had one time.
No,
I haven't heard the story, so I don't know.
I wish there were a story. I really do.
There is no creepy Russian
There is no creepy Russian roommate. I did once take some Russian martial arts, which mostly involved getting beaten up by Russians. I had bruises that might have been a little closer to hematomas, and I didn't do well, but, good times. With Raptor, I knew that I wanted to make a rigor character, and I wanted to explore a little bit more of that sort of concept of essence loss and of sort of the synthesis of man and machine, and I wanted to play around with sort of the ideas that you see in all sorts of cyberpunk fiction of sort of what is the definition of human, all these really cool sort of transhumanist and posthumanist ideas that I can't take any real credit for. These are long pre-existing.
No, but he was a venue
ideas.
for you to explore those
he was a venue
things,
to explore these concepts,
Yeah,
right? And that's something that I always like to do with characters.
Yeah.
So we ultimately decided that Raptor would be an optional teammate, but he's just the dude who lives on your boat. And if you're comfortable never talking to the dude who lives on your boat, that's perfectly fine.
But in Shadowrun, that really seems unwise.
And just messes around with his giant drum all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't you?
I am disinclined to interact with neighbors who have murder robots. Yes.
Just the simplest thing of when you walk down, when you go down to his area, he's not facing you, right? And just, you click on him and he turns around and faces you. And for some reason, that was really effective for me. It's like, all right, there's Raptor.
It has to do with, I know what you're talking about, and it has to do with his portrait.
Yeah.
Because he's sort of like got his head cocked a little
Yeah,
to
he's
the
got
side.
that little look in his eye. Like
and then he's got like just a little bit of a shit-eating grin, like not full on, but just a hint of one, and it's sort of sparkle in his eye. And then if you approached a normal person in the dark from behind and were like, hey man, like they would shit themselves, and like Raptor's just like, what's going on, man?
Tyler uses the word disinclined to mess with people robots, but like Raptor is like disinclination embodied. Like he's just completely detached. So he's just like he's just doing his work, and you're just merely interrupting him. So it's not as much of a frightening situation as it is It's just a nuisance.
Yeah.
Who is this?
Can I help
And
you?
that makes him interesting right away.
I think this is a really important time where we can point out the work of Joel Duquet, who was our character lead, and who did a lot of those great character portraits. You know, so the portrait for Raptor, the portrait for Gaichu, you know, it's just lovely. And you know, we went through a couple of portraits for Kindly, and I had some character reference, but he found exactly the idea I was going for, and it is from Kung Fu Hustle. The woman with the curlers in Kung Fu Hustle.
The landlady.
Yeah, the landlady. And he put her in without telling me, and so so I'm just playing Kindly, and one day she pops up. It's like, oh my god, this is... And I ran over and I hugged him, and I think I kind of kissed him.